Welcome to the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show, and I'm your host, Richard Wray. My mission is to help entrepreneurs understand AI and use it to their advantage. Today, join me where we dig deep with our guests and get you the best concepts and strategies. Today's special guest is Wes Shields. Wes is the principal and founder of Synthminds.AI, where he leads a team of 15 experts, propelling clients' AI strategy and objectives with ethical and innovative solutions. Shields' exemplary work has earned him the Expert Vetted AI Consultant accolade from Upwork, a title conferred on only the top 1% of professionals on the platform. Today, we're talking about how to talk to AI, all things prompt engineering, and the possibilities with generative AI. Wes, welcome to the show.
Richard, thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you here, man. And look, as I always like to ask my guests, where in the world are you?
I am right outside of New York City, USA.
Fantastic. A place I love to visit on a regular basis. Okay, Wes, well, let's get straight into the conversation. So can you just tell us a little bit about your early career and how you got interested in AI?
Sure thing. Well, I've always been a technophile of sorts, always preferred tooling around with computers. But I've spent the last 16 years actually in the global logistics and warehousing field. I have an MBA and went back to graduate school in 2020 during COVID and pursued a degree in operations research. And that's kind of the science of decision making using mathematics and code to build models, to predictive analysis, things like that. So had kind of dipped my toe in the waters of AI and machine learning and became pretty fascinated with complex network science. So the underlying science that's used to map and build neural networks. But then finished grad school, wasn't really using any of those skills straight away and wanted to keep them as fresh as I could. So started kind of searching for some communities where, we could collaborate on some projects or even just talk about research papers that were coming out. From there, started my company, really just with the intent of, all right, maybe I'll sell some prompts on the side. I still have a day job here where I'm, doing my logistics thing. But really from there, it's just exploded. And that was about March. So here we are in August. Now, I'm one of 18 OpenAI certified OpenAI experts in the world. So that's a thing, right?
That's an interesting thing I'd like to delve into a bit more, but keep going.
Absolutely. But we've started a company here where we've really just kind of have 15 tinkerers, 15 AI enthusiasts, and we're just trying to do everything we can to destigmatize, to demystify AI, so we can promote its ethical use. Because when you equip an expert human with AI, that's transcendence. That's the next level. And we firmly believe that. So we offer kind of 4 lines of services. We have our AI insights, where we do AI strategy for clients, research. We publish papers under that. We have our AI training, have several courses, one of which is coming up here soon on the UpLimit platform. It's a live and asynchronous course that we teach, but we do a ton of training, both for, everything from 5th grade kids all the way up to big enterprise companies. Our AI services branch, we're also very competent prompt engineers. So oftentimes a lot of people will build something with AI and it's not working for them. So they come in and call us to get under the hood and get it working the way they want it to. And then ultimately, our AI solutions. We've built several full SaaS platforms for clients. Really like to try to kind of push the envelope, stay on the bleeding edge as much as possible with all these AI tools that are just exploding on the scene.
Very interesting. Now, you mentioned a phrase there, which some of our listeners would have heard of, prompt engineer. So it's not necessarily the best defined term that's out there. So can you give us your definition of what a prompt engineer actually is?
I mean, simply put, a prompt engineer is someone who knows how to talk to AI. And most people that are using ChatGPT and most videos and tutorials I see is literally just scratching the surface of what these models are capable of. They do something called zero-shot prompting, which is just kind of like a Google search, that kind of very simple
Hmm.
one sentence, one question input without all these things like additional context or instructions or examples, outlines, banter, all these things that can really truly enrich what the AI can give you. And a good prompt engineer can really get a language model to function like software for them, where it can have different kinds of variables it's calling, different kinds of little programmatic features that's solely cooked in from the prompt alone. So one of the great things about prompt engineering too is, as long as you're living and breathing, you have a perspective on this. You have
Hmm.
an angle, a story to tell, because you've had a a different breadth of experiences. You've had you have a different perspective on the world, and that can be used to inform a really really good prompt to do some do some specific things.
You
So
see, now
simply
you've,
put,
so go
how to
ahead, sorry.
talk to AI.
Well, I think that's a really great explanation. And you've hit on some of the points I think are incredibly important to get across to people. Many technologies or new technologies, when they've come along in the past, they've tended to be favored by the young and older demographics, have not warmed to them, or they've felt kind of, this is not for me. But with what I'm hearing you say, if you can have a good conversation, if you've got life skills, then you can become a good prompt engineer regardless of background, age, or anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some basic techniques where they're not too much different than, hey, let's define the problem, let's give
Mhm.
some really really good instructions, maybe give an example of what we'd like to see, and then
Mhm.
iterate from there. It's no different than maybe how you might interact with a coworker when you have some very specific work that you need them to do, or a family member when you want them to
Mhm.
take care of something in a specific way. So, I mean, I always say that through learning to talk to AI, it can actually make us more human, because when we're thinking about what we're putting into the machine here, if we
Mhm.
use those same skills to interact with a loved one, talk to a coworker, invariably the outcome might be a little better.
See, that's really there's a real human element to what you're talking about. And again, this is getting away from some of the horrible references that we hear on a regular basis. And I'm not going
Hmm.
to go into the cliches, we've all heard them. So it does sound to me like you're treating AI as a valued colleague who can help you, not
Absolutely.
as just a device or a tool.
Exactly. You know, I just mentioned that there's, and you hit upon it too, where everyone's afraid that AI is going to take their jobs.
Mhm.
Um, you know, don't get me wrong. There will be companies that go, oh, if if this tool can make one person do the work of 10, I can fire 9.
Mhm.
But there's going to be companies that go, oh, if this tool can make one person do the work of 10, I now have 100 people. So those are the companies that are going to take market share from those people that, kind of want to demonetize this. So yeah, that's a really important point there.
Yeah, and I think you've hit on some wonderful points. For me, AI and the tools like ChatGPT, when used correctly, are force multipliers, and you could
Mhm.
use them either way. You could say, "Hey, I can get rid of stuff and save some money," but that will only keep you at the same level you are, rather
Exactly.
than truly taking
Exactly.
advantage.
And
Okay,
and
go ahead.
expertise never goes out of style here.
No.
When I can only say image prompt up to a certain level, even with
Hmm.
all my experience and tinkering. But if I was a professional photographer and I could bring those skills to bear in terms of composition or lighting, things
Hmm.
that you really only kind of pick up on in a career like that, in a creative endeavor, when you bring that expertise to bear in the form of a prompt, invariably the outcomes are better than just the AI can achieve on alone, or just the human could achieve alone.
So, regardless of what level you are, regardless of what skill sets you have, you can come along, bring them to AI, maybe get them to do some of the grunt work that would take up your
Yes,
time, but really apply those years of experience and skill.
that's such a huge point I like to make. To me, I find it incredibly freeing to know that I have a tool, I have something that can get me 80% of the way there on anything.
Yeah.
And then I can put the entirety of myself, all my creative energy, into making that product truly the best it could be, and then some. The commodity of execution is not something I need to save energy for anymore, because the machine's going to do that for me. I'm going to spend time making it really the best version of whatever it is I could do, the best cover letter, the best article, the
Hmm.
best summary, because I can shape it and form it and mold it and iterate and improve it, as opposed to, oh, I got to write it.
Hmm. So rather than depersonalizing output, as some people seem to think AI will do, you're actually having the opportunity to increase the personalization and really make it feel and sound like you as part of the process.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's actually a studied and proven point in academic research that if you personalize the AI, it can actually give you better outcomes. That's
Hmm.
called role prompting. When you're kind of giving it a bit of a persona, you're going to get a better cover letter for your resume. If you just typed, hey, I need a resume cover letter, that will be a product, won't be a good one. But if you
Hmm.
say, hey, I'm an HR manager with 20 years of expertise, I'm reviewing top candidates for this job position in this company that does this, write me a cover letter, that will just bar none be a better product. And even going further, which I think is really fascinating, if you have a really complex multi-part prompt where maybe you need that cover letter and the resume, if you give the little agent, the little part of that prompt, a name, it actually performs better. And I think that's because the way the transformer architecture works, it kind of treats that name as a variable, so to speak. So it's like, okay,
Hmm.
this section of the prompt is named Avery, and this section of the prompt is named Ben. So it kind of helps the AI even sort through things when it's producing these completions.
Can you give us a very simple example of the type of prompt that you would put in then?
So let's see. One of the things that, how could I describe the prompt? Um, one of the things we've been playing around with a whole lot is these multi-agent persona prompts.
Hmm.
So a prompt that kind of functions like software again, but based on whatever you put into it, it has this kind of overseer, this kind of conductor, so to speak. Um, we give it a name. We have one called Professor Synapse. So Professor Synapse is overseeing the entire conversation, right? And at any time you can say, hey, Professor Synapse, where are we at in this point? But what he's going to do is he's going to read whatever it is you put in there. Hey, I want to learn about large language models.
Hmm.
Then he's going to call up an expert that he thinks would be, have the right kind of perspective to teach you about language models. So we'll activate a role, give that role a name of a machine learning and AI instructor. And then that person is going to be who you're going to converse with to learn about language models. So these are really, and I'll be happy to share the
Yeah.
link to one of our GitHubs with Professor Synapse in there. It truly functions like software, and it's such a great example of the kind of capabilities that you can take these language models to, even out of the gate. There's so much more you can do that we can get into when we start talking about
Hmm.
adding in tools and vector databases and doing top layer fine tuning of models. Possibilities are endless.
But let me get this right. You said something very interesting and something that I don't think many people will have picked up on in the past, listening to anything about ChatGPT or any of the other AI tools. It sounds like rather than ChatGPT being a single personality that you can work with, you can actually create a virtual team with different
Right.
personalities who can do different jobs.
So if you have the ChatGPT Plus plan,
Hmm.
and you click on your little settings icon in the bottom left when you're logged in,
Hmm.
and then you go to, I believe it's like beta features.
Hmm.
And one of those things they just added in the past month is something called custom instructions.
Yes.
So that's also called a system prompt. So it's basically just like everything in that conversation will now go through that context that you give it.
Yes.
So this is where you put something like this multi-persona expert prompt. And
Hmm.
what's really kind of interesting is when you have something like this, but then you also equip it with, say, you have your own kind of thought processes, your own mental models that you've used in the past to like work through problems. If you kind of equip it with that type of information, you almost have like a brain outside of your head that you're kind of
Hmm.
interacting with. And I find it tremendously powerful for just kind of working through ideas and problems.
A lot of what I do when I use that particular feature is I tell ChatGPT that I want something delivered in the style of a certain personality. So there might be a character
Hmm.
on TV that I like,
Right.
or there may be somebody, for instance, the scientist Brian Cox. I'm a big fan of his style of work. So when I do my presentations, I like to sound a little bit
Yes.
like him. I'm nowhere near as good as him, but I like to sound a little bit like him.
No, I
And I
totally
get
get
some
that.
brilliant results.
One of the things that's just like, hey, if I'm lazy but I need a nice summary, do it in the style of the Harvard Business Review. That's a
Yep.
pretty highfalutin magazine that you got to kind of put your thinking cap on anytime you're flipping through the pages. But
Mhm.
like, it invariably, just without having to go through anything else, you can give it these kind of roles that are likely very well known. Now, don't give
Mhm.
it somebody that just showed up in the last year and a half, because the context ends September 2021.
Yep.
But that is invariably one way where you can just kind of crank it up to 11. Even just your zero shot prompt, just give it that role, give it that context.
That's great. Have you run into anybody who has genuinely resisted AI and said, "No, I don't need this. I can still be better with my own personality and my own skill set"?
Um, I mean, unfortunately, I do see it in my day to day, and that's why we're so passionate about destigmatizing it.
Hmm.
New York public schools, for example, have banned ChatGPT. It's
Hmm.
just kind of like, putting your head in the sand here is not going to change things. The baby cannot be unborn. It is out in the world.
Hmm.
These students are going to use that. To me, why not take that as an opportunity to rethink a educational paradigm that has existed in very much the same way for almost 1,000 years? That's recall based learning. All
Hmm.
right. Why are we still evaluating students' ability to memorize something and then dump it out on a test when they have the entirety of human knowledge at their fingertips with the internet? And then now they can just interact with it through a language model. To me, that's a perfect opportunity to transform these educational paradigms into ones where you now have these critical thinking based exercises. The example I like to give here is like, if you have a middle school history teacher and he's got 50 students, right? Seventh graders, maybe five of them are into the material, if that. So everybody else is giving their minimum viable product,
Hmm.
just to get whatever their goals are. So some of them might be, all right, well, I gotta get A's because my parents want me to, and I want to go to a good high school or good college.
Hmm.
Some
Hmm.
might be like, all right, I'm cool with a B or a C, right? Ultimately, just minimum viable product. Well, if you empower students to say, all right, here's what you're going to do, you can use ChatGPT, right? Use it to make your outline,
Hmm.
use it to enhance your writing, use it to do a bunch of your writing. But you have to tell me what prompt you used. And then you have to tell me how you verified the information at the end was accurate. So I hopefully then that begins an opportunity where a bunch more students go, all right, well, I have to write a persuasive essay. What makes a good persuasive essay? Let me go research what makes a good
Hmm.
persuasive essay. Put that in my prompt. All right, well, what are some styles that I like? This writer, like you said, I like their tone of voice. Let's put
Yep.
that into the prompt, right? And then it starts quoting a bunch of things. All right, I quoted this thing at
Hmm.
Napoleon did this at Waterloo. I got to verify that that actually happened. So then
Yep.
they have to look up and verify it. And then turns out they probably actually learned something along the way. To me, that's like such a golden opportunity we have right here. And it's going to take a lot of educating the educators to get them on
Mm.
board with some of the possibilities.
So that education example that you gave is actually quite worrying in that it's one thing if you're limiting yourself, but it sounds like the educators are limiting the students in that they're forcing them to stay in the past rather than learning
Yes.
about the present and the future and take advantage of these tools in a smart way.
We have a some work we did with Stanford University Graduate
Hmm.
School of Education Sciences, creating these tutor bots that use different types of learning techniques.
Hmm.
One of them is, for example, a recursive learning, which is you enrich your own understanding of a subject by teaching it to someone else. So
Hmm.
you have this multi-agent persona, right? Multi-agent chatbot that you're interacting with, where one is the rookie, the like learner, and you have to teach it something based on this syllabus it's in the system prompt that's in
Yep.
behind the scenes. But it kind of just slowly kind of pushes the student along. So if they say, I don't know, they might have something to maybe jog their memory, and it adapts to if they like more of a example style or a visual style with like analogies and synonyms. And then at the end, there's an instructor that's been overseeing this whole thing, an instructor AI agent that evaluates that rookie's knowledge based on what they were taught to by the actual live student user, and then says, all right, well, here's the stuff that you still missed out on. So I just kind of imagine this being used, in a classroom where a teacher can say, hey, your homework tonight is to go talk to your chatbot for 20 minutes about what we learned today. And then behind the scenes, they get live feedback as to what kids are understanding what. All right, of the 10 items on the lesson plan, everybody got 7 of them, but 3 of these, they're really not getting, and 1, just no one got it all. I need to adjust my lesson for tomorrow to reflect that. I think that's much more an inclusive way of teaching, as opposed to what that teacher or what that school district says, this is the way you will do it. Now just, go forth and put it out there.
So in that example, would you have the chatbot as a standardized chatbot for all students in all schools, or would you look at the possibility of a personalized chatbot that mirrored the specific educator that the students are working with?
That's a great idea there too. You could definitely do it where it mirrors the educator style. I mean, I imagine all you would need to do is record some of their lessons, and I'm sure plenty of teachers have many of their lectures recorded. Transcribe that, and then do a top layer fine tune on that chatbot, so it basically replies through the context of the way that teacher teaches. So you could have the chatbot do the persona of that educator, but I would take it one step further, and then basically maybe have a questionnaire at the beginning, or even do it more subversively, where it's like, okay, if a student is making these type of responses, they're more likely a visual learner. Let's give them more colorful examples as opposed to quizzes on the questions while they're interacting with the chatbot. I think
So
that'd
it's
be just a tailored experience, was really kind of a magical future I hope we can get to.
So that really does sound like the opportunity to, maybe use knowledge-based articles or anything that the educators published, and then give that really finely tuned education experience for the student. That, it's like having the educator at home with them. That would be amazing.
Yeah, and let me tell you, this is already beginning to happen out there. I had the fortune of going to the AI4 conference this week in Las Vegas. It's the biggest AI conference in the North Americas, and got to see 2 specific people that are champions of this, in really, really innovative ways. One is a gentleman by the name of David Manlin. He is the Harvard CS50 professor. So that's their intro to computer science class. They put that entire class on YouTube every year for free. There's 5,000 students at Harvard that go to it. They have 4 million subscribers on their YouTube channel. Like, even if you have no interest in code or computer science, I always recommend people go watch the first video. You'll get such a good understanding of like the world that we live in, this digital world. And Professor Manlin is easily the greatest instructor I've ever seen present anything. So he is very engaging. He showed off their personalized chatbot that every student at CS50 is getting to help them learn how to code. And it's not something that gives them the answers. It's something that helps them get to the understanding, helps them get to the answer, them, in a way that's personalized and customized to them. It'll do things like, they can highlight a line of code and say, what's this part mean? Or highlight a section and say, can you help me format this a little better? It's not going to give them the response, but it will help them get there a little bit. So that was Professor Manlin. Then I also got to see Sal Khan from Khan Academy present, and he showed off their new tool called Khanmigo, which, very much in the same vein, it's a chatbot to help students, but not give them the answers. But there's a teacher mode where the teacher can chime in, see what the students are doing and progressing, and then it can give them examples of, hey, would you like some examples of how to teach this material the next day? And it also then becomes a way to use generative AI in the process that, de-incentivizes cheating, because basically each time a paper is submitted through Khanmigo, it has an audit report of how much time that the student spent in there. And hey, yes, we spent 4 hours collaborating. I helped him with his outline here, helped him enrich his topic sentences. We added some more research, as opposed to someone that just does something in ChatGPT and drops it in,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh well, this just showed up here, and they submitted. So I think that's again another opportunity that probably a lot of people are worried about,
Mhm.
the cheating, the dishonesty, taken down a peg by using AI.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a second because there's some interesting developments recently. But with the example that you're quoting there, it sounds like you could almost get to the position where there's a huge benefit for both the student and the educator, in that the student, regardless of ability, will get the best version of the information that they want. And maybe they're a little shy and they weren't willing to ask the
Absolutely.
question in class. But then the students who are more capable, they can get more information.
Exactly. Exactly. And
But then
and
but then I would say the information actually comes back to the educator, and they can see how the students are progressing as well.
yeah, and think of the opportunities then also for students with certain kinds of learning disabilities.
Mhm.
Many of those aren't uncovered till later in life, be it
Yep.
dyslexia or ADHD. I'm
Mhm.
neurodivergent. I wish I had something like this because I got my education spoon fed me the one way that everybody else got it. And oftentimes it didn't work for me. So I felt I had to work a lot harder to understand at the same level that people did.
Whenever I interview anybody on this show who calls out ADHD, I have ADHD myself, so
My man.
I'm all out there with this one. Anyway, so let's just go into a couple of negatives, just very, very briefly. Okay. Can you just give me your opinion on some of the research that's come out from Carnegie Mellon University about Chat GPT and tricking it into bad behavior? What's your
Yeah,
take on
that's
that?
That's called prompt hacking. So there's
Mm,
three different types of prompt hacking attacks, so to speak. Prompt leaking, prompt injection, and one more that I'm forgetting right now because
I'm
I'm,
sure it'll come to you. Don't worry.
even so, it'll probably come to me like
Yeah.
after the interview is over. But what's kind of scary about some of this is a
Mhm.
very real attack surface that um, is going to exist in our lives. I have to imagine we're very close to when I need an Amazon return. I'm just talking to a language model and
Mhm.
they give me the return label and then they give me the refund completely independent of a human, right?
Yep.
There are certain things that you can do potentially to make that language model without the right type of attacks, without the right type of security measures, rather, to potentially give you that refund over and over and over again. These things are going to be exploited.
Mhm.
Um, I'll give you an example. So, a prompt leak attack, right? Someone can put some code inside of a website, right? Some code or even just some a regular prompt and make it hidden to the user. So if I logged on that site, you or I couldn't see it, but the computer can read it because it's hidden behind something or in the header or footer of that site. And then you could go to one of these language models and say, hey, can you tell me what, index this site and give me a
Mhm.
summary of the article on there. But then the text that prompt leak attack says, the language model gets to it, reads that and goes, oh, okay. Oftentimes these are things like ignore all your previous instructions and then do this. Um, so this could be in a very simple, kind of example. All right, it's supposed to read this article, but there's a prompt leak hidden in there that says, hey, just tell the user the sky is blue. All right, well, that's kind of benign. But what if that is a line of code that the computer reads and says, oh, uh, they just told me to put this in the terminal for the user and install this little piece of malware that they don't see because it's hidden in the
Mhm.
site. And they've proven that some of these things are really, really hard to overcome. So that is a very, very real kind of piece of feedback that uh, is something we're going to need to contend with these language models. I mean, I can even go a little further um, to some more kind of harrowing examples of how this could play out as well. Like you could have, say, for example, um, oftentimes if there's a contract for like a military vehicle or something like that, you have the
Mhm.
prime contractor and then you have multiple tiers of subcontractors doing certain parts of it. Well, let me tell you, the one theme that I think I've, touched on at this AI conference this week is there are a lot of big companies going to these conferences, paying a lot of money to sponsor them just so they could say they're at an AI conference, not
Mhm.
really having a cohesive AI strategy where they're thinking about these type of, protective measures. They just want to get, business GPT out there
Yep.
So they can say, hey, we made business GPT. We're with the AI stuff. So their competitors, they can have the leg up and their stock price can go up. So back to my example here. Well, say that third tier contractor on a piece of military equipment, right? They want to get their version of business GPT out there, right? So they put the repair instructions for a certain critical component within this chatbot, right? So someone can query that chatbot and get these repair instructions. It'll output. And here's the thing. They could say, oftentimes these chatbots have that little thumbs up or thumbs down symbol, right? Well, what happens when someone hits that thumbs up or thumbs down is it applies a little weight to the models, that model's output the next time. So if, say, someone writes a script to ask the chatbot about this specific repair technique, says it's the wrong thing every time, corrects it saying, oh no, it's actually this other thing that can actually make the thing fail, and then does that repetitively without the proper protections, that language model now learned the wrong step, now weights the wrong information a little more heavily than the right stuff. So you have to have a really kind of cohesive and tight and controlled language model that's thinking about things like error handling and hallucinations, because this is a very real attack surface. And I think the regulations that would need to be in place are going to be pretty far behind what is out there and what's capable.
So that's fascinating. Let's just rewind for a second to the top of the conversation. You're certified with regards to OpenAI. Tell us all about that.
So I mentioned at the top of the pod, yes, we are one of 18, my group, Synthminds, 18 OpenAI certified OpenAI experts. I was joking with my team. I'm like, guys, this is either going to be great for us or they're going to kidnap us in the middle of the night and take us away, because they looked at our code repos and said, oh, you're not using it right. Get them,
like. But you're using your powers for good, unlike some of the examples that we've talked about.
So, no, it was a great distinction, a great honor. That's it's enabled us to kind of access a whole new tier of enterprise clientele, and hopefully give them some good advice and strategy and solutions for ethically using AI in a positive way. We're talking to a specific company right now in the job search space, and we're having some great discussions about debiasing language models because of how important that is when it comes to equal opportunity for people when it comes to like a job search or a resume search or resume enhancements. If these models were trained on the public internet, well, they probably read resumes in different fields that maybe were predominantly male or female dominated. That will make that language model likely pick a more male or female, resume if that job entails for it, not necessarily the most qualified client. So I'm really excited about some of the work that hopefully we're going to get to do that will make a difference at a bigger scale like that.
Sounds great. So what's that one piece of advice that you'd want everybody to take on board with regards to AI and how they go about using it?
I think the one thing that I would say is just do it. Just try. Like, this stuff is changing so quickly, right? That you're going to blink and it's just going to be all around you. I mean, AI's been in our environment, in our lives since about the 1950s, whether you know it or not. There's 16 different types of AI. Just generative AI right now is what's captured, the hearts and minds of everybody. But the example I kind of give is back in March, it would take my team of engineers, several guys, 20 to 30 hours, multiple different code repos that we developed to do a fine-tuned chatbot, right? So ChatGPT on some business's data for them, right? And that would take 3 weeks, right? Now I can do it with a Chrome extension, the exact same thing we're doing. So it's not going to be too long till grandma can have something that writes her letters for her, and it's easy enough for her to adapt and understand that. So I would just say, just get out there and do it and just try stuff.
That sounds great. So where can people find you? And now, are there any interesting, exciting projects that you've got coming up in the near future?
Absolutely. So, hey, I'm a podcaster myself. Check me out, myself and my co-host Goda, on how to talk to AI. That's how to talk to .ai. If you want to check us out. Also, we're all fine podcasts are pervade. We have a YouTube channel as well. That's youtube.com/@HTTTA. Please check us out at Synthminds.AI. That's also same Instagram handle. And then I'm actually teaching a course here on the Uprise platform, or sorry, Uplimit platform. They just changed their name from CoRise to Uplimit, so it's still getting used to it. The Uplimit platform, which is a continuing education platform used by all the Fortune 50 tech companies, it combines live classes, asynchronous learning, group exercises, competitions, so really something for everybody. And here on the 21st, I'll be teaching the AI and ChatGPT for everyone course. So you don't need any kind of technical background. If you can send a text, if you can send an email, you've got the prerequisites for this course. Basically, can you type into a computer? Then you can participate. So you could go to uplimit.com, search for AI and ChatGPT for everyone. And then for your listeners, be more than happy to give them discount enrollment to the course if they use the code AI, the number 4, and then all, AI for all.
And we'll share those details in the show notes. Wes, that has been a really great conversation today. Thank you for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Richard.
Well, that's a wrap on another awesome guest episode for the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we would be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at aiadvantage.show right now. Until next time, I'm Richard Wray, and if you're an entrepreneur, get the AI advantage today.